Everyone, I would like to welcome you all to John Knox Church, and this is a three-part session on dementia, which is a result of our aging and memory loss presentation that we had back in October. There was a lot of interest expressed in having more information on certain subjects, and thus the three-part series that we're now undertaking. The information on this subject is going to be presented by Jamie Gray, who has graciously agreed to present this three-part series, and it's Dementia, Embracing Your New Normal. A little background on Jamie. She is the program director with the Greenville area office of the Alzheimer's Association. She received her Bachelor of Science in Psychology in 1999 from Bridgewater State College in Massachusetts, and she has been a dementia specialist since 2006, and she recently received her certification as a certified dementia practitioner in March of 2016. And with that, I'll now turn it over to Jamie. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon on this lovely, cold, rainy day in March. So today we're going to talk about the basics of dementia, and that's one of the biggest questions I have is, so is dementia normal? Are we supposed to get dementia? Because we're getting older, all those different types of things, and especially is, well, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? And so we're going to kind of delve into all of those things, and hopefully this will work. We're not here. Okay, you can just go to the next one and I'll tell you what he says. So, what he was saying basically is if we do not change the projection of this disease, that this disease will single-handedly bankrupt the Medicare and Medicaid system. I just saw a fact. For every $100 spent on someone, on research, so for every $100 spent on research, $12,500 is spent on the care for someone with Alzheimer's and dementia through Medicare and Medicaid. $12,500. It's a lot of money. So, like he says, which you can hear, it will bankrupt if we don't do anything. Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. It is the only cause of death that has no cure, no prevention, and no slowing it down. So that's pretty depressing on this cold, rainy, awful day in March. However, there is some hope out there, and part of it is what can we do, and that's a whole nother conversation about risk reduction versus the prevention. There's a lot going on in the scientific world and research, and more so than ever, I feel that there is a glimmer of hope for this disease. So, but today we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about, what the basics are of this disease. So, typical age-related changes, and we're all going through it because we're all aging, because if we're not aging, then we're not existing, and if we're not existing, that's not good. So, we're all aging, which is great. So, the changes that we all have, your hair color starts to change, the skin texture and tone starts to change, your ability to bend down and get back up starts to change. So all of those things change. Your hearing starts to change. When you hit 40-something, you start to do the, let me pull that away this way, and grabbing your friend's readers after you've made fun of them for 2 years, and now you're doing it. And then, even the memory recall, those things change too. So we're not able to always remember every little thing that we used to remember. You walk into a room and you're like, why did I come in here? Or you might be in the middle of a conversation, and I mean, I've done this where I've been in the middle of a conversation and I'm like, I'm not even sure why I'm telling you the story, because I don't even know where I'm going with it. Or you're in the middle of a conversation, you get distracted, and then you're like, yeah, I'm not sure what we were even just talking about. And then you and your friends start doing the dialogue. Well, I think you said this, and yeah, I said that, and we're like, oh yes. And then we carry on in the conversation. So all of those things are normal. What isn't normal is when those things start to affect your daily life. And as you can see up there, like, so we lose things from time to time. And next slide. And you can just fast forward through her, because what she's going to talk about is her problematic changes. And what that is related to is she was saying that, what things that used to take her 2 seconds to do, and now taking her minutes. She has a PhD, but she couldn't spell the word of and the. And she couldn't count, she could, do her checkbook, but she wasn't able to count back change. It was a little confusing for her to count back like what the money was worth. So these are the problems that are affecting the person's daily life. So again, on a bad day, most of us could probably have all of these signs. But is it really truly affecting your daily life? Are you able to remember that you didn't pay the bill? Are you able to recall that conversation, that person's name? Are you able to manage your bills? Are you able to leave from your home that you've lived in for 30 plus years, heading to John Knox, where you've been coming to 30 plus years without a problem? Or are you leaving your driveway and you take a left instead of a right, and then you're like, oh, where was I going? Or now it's taken you an hour and a half to, write an email to a friend or a letter. You're forgetting rules to the game. You're saying things that are, maybe a little off color, maybe a little socially inappropriate, and depending on, who you are and where you're from, that may not be totally out of character. But if you've always been a sweet, sweet woman and all of a sudden you're telling someone where to go and how to get there, that might be like, oh, what is mom doing? Why would she say that? Or I didn't know dad knew those words. I always tell people, those bad words, even though you may have never uttered them from your mouth, you all know all the bad words. And that stays. That's the part of the brain on the right side of the brain that remains. It's like that little back section. So when you have Alzheimer's or a dementia and you have an emotion or you want to say something and you can't think of the word, you're busting out with a bad word. And everyone's like, oh, whoa, I can't believe she knew that word. Oh, well, we all know. Like, I could probably come up with a word that you had never heard of, but you would be like, that doesn't sound good, and I'm pretty sure that's a bad word. So we all know what those bad words are, and when we cannot find that language, that word that we want to use, when we have this disease, that's the words that come out. So it's not that they've been like repressed and have always wanted to say those things, it's just that's the only things that are coming out. So then we have the confusion with time or place, and that's not, is today March 10th? What is it, 11th? Time is flying. So those things are normal to be like, okay, well, we all know it's Sunday. Is it this day, is it that day? When we've retired, and you don't have any commitments throughout the week, Sunday is the church day, and then Monday through Saturday, it's a bunch of Saturdays together. So it really doesn't matter if it's a Monday or a Wednesday or a Thursday. Every day's a Saturday until it's Sunday. What that is referring to is, I don't know that it's 2018. I don't know that George Bush. Trump. I might need to go. That Donald Trump is the president. So you don't know the current events that are happening that are kind of significant. I'm referring to maybe people that have, passed away, or back in my hometown, I might be saying, oh, well, we need to go to, Davy's Locker for fish and chips, and it's like, well, there's no Davy's Locker in Greenville, and you're like, well, yeah, there is, and then you're like, oh, wait, that's not where I'm thinking. So that's the time or place that is where we kind of worry about, is that current event. And then the speaking and writing, so, and this is especially interesting for people who, if you've never seen the movie Still Alice, Julianne Moore plays this woman, Alice, who is a linguist professor. So her life is speaking and doing speeches and all of that stuff related to talking and communicating. And in the middle of one of her presentations, she just stops because the words, the thoughts, and we all go through that, especially if you have, a conversation going on in your head, you're trying to have a conversation with someone and then you just kind of get tangled up. But then you can figure it out what you want to say, or be like, okay, well, we'll just carry on. But that ability to know that this is a wristwatch, but now I might call it a hand clock or a thingamabob, whatchamacallit, you know what I'm trying to say kind of thing. So I can't find those words. And in the earlier stages, there's a lot of compensation that kind of goes around it. It's like, oh, well, I'm just busy, and we make a lot of excuses as to why we're doing those things. But then it eventually gets worse and it continues on. And then then what happens is, along with the mood and behavior changes, now I'm trying to think of the word I want to use, of the person's name I want to say, and my husband's giving me a bunch of like, is it this, is it this, is it this? And I'm like, shut up. I know what I want to say. You stop it. Leave me alone. I'm not stupid. Give me a break. And so then it becomes a lot of issue and emotion and aggravation and frustration, because it is frustrating when you're in the middle of a conversation and you can't think of a word. Or if you're trying to even button buttons and you can't get it. Or better yet, ladies, if you're trying to do your necklace and you're like, oh my God, it's not going on, why? And then you're like, ah! So it gets very frustrating because you can't do something so simple. Well, we can say, okay, well, let me just take a deep breath and let me relax and I'll do it again. Or we just say, you know what, I'm just not going to wear that necklace today. But when you're doing something simple like buttoning your buttons, it does make it difficult and frustrating and aggravating when someone tries to step in. And so we start to have the frontal lobe becomes affected. And that frontal lobe is telling all of you to sit here and be sweet and socially appropriate and engaged. But if you wanted to tell me to shut up because you're like, oh my God, why is she still talking about this? You might, if you had Alzheimer's and your frontal lobe of the brain was affected, just tell me that. Or if someone had to go to the restroom, you would politely and quietly get up and you wouldn't tell anybody what you're doing. But if you had Alzheimer's or dementia that was affecting that frontal lobe, you might bust out and say what you're gonna go do and where you're gonna go do it. And it's not that there's any, maliciousness or, I'm trying to do this. And that's what becomes tough is Alzheimer's and dementia. Whoever has the disease, especially in the beginning, they look just like they've always looked. There's no outward sign that there's something wrong. So today I'm being sweet and polite, and then tomorrow I might be swearing or telling an inappropriate joke at church, or telling someone I gotta go to the bathroom, or oh, why would you wear that color? It looks awful on you. That's things that we all keep in our head, but now I'm saying it. And then it's like, why would mom do that? That's so rude. And so then you start to say and do those things, and now I'm starting to notice the looks that I'm getting because I'm saying and doing those things. And so you get why is she doing that? And then I start to feel awful and bad, and then I can't think of the words I want to say, and I'm starting to feel, and this is a word that someone with Alzheimer's had told me, she said, I just sometimes feel stupid. And there's no one in this room that wants to feel stupid. So therefore, I'm not feeling good today. I'm not gonna go to the coffee talk. I'm not gonna go to the ladies' lunch. My daughter's coming to visit me. Daughter's not coming to visit. I'm just not coming, because I don't like that feeling and so forth. So I start to withdraw. And that is like the worst thing to do, because one of the things to help reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and dementia is socialization, is being engaged with other people, and even getting out of your comfort zone and doing those things. And so if I don't have anyone kind of pushing me along, well, how easy would it have been once you left church today and went back home? Just to stay home, snuggle up with a book, get a cup of coffee. But, and then each day it becomes a little bit easier, and a little bit easier, and a little bit easier just to stay home, and then you're not being engaged. Next. Next. So, this I think is a great depiction, and if you picture an umbrella, which we all hopefully have, and mine is in the car. Of course it is. So it's an umbrella term of a cognitive disease of the brain that affects a person's short-term memory initially, and then it goes throughout the executive functioning and the ability to do activities of daily living, that's bathing, dressing, and so forth. It affects all those different types of things. And these different items cause a person's dementia. So Alzheimer's isn't an end result of a dementia that's been going on forever. Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. It is the most common type of dementia. About 72% of the people who have dementia have an Alzheimer's type dementia. Then you have the frontal temporal lobe dementia, and that typically is in people who are younger, late 40s, 50s will have this disease. It's pretty aggressive, you know, and that's when you have that younger population of people. That is where it becomes a little bit tougher to get that diagnosis, because you're young, you're fine. Maybe you're depressed. Here's this, try that. And they don't really take that person seriously. If you're 65 even and went to the doctor and said, you know what, I went to this program and I read through all this and I just really feel that there's something going on, the doctor possibly will kind of brush it off. Well, maybe you're depressed. Maybe it's just this. Maybe it's just that. And they don't take the person seriously when they're going through this. And not a lot of people will fight to find out what's going on. They'll be like, okay, well, the doctor said it's this, and I'm fine. No harm, no foul, we're good. So it's get the knowledge so that you can advocate for yourself, for your loved one, for whomever. Because right now, yes, this disease has no cure, prevention, or a method of slowing it down, but at least you know what you're dealing with. Because if you look at those 10 signs, I have a group of people that come to I have an engagement group, and there's about 4 of the women that told me that they were this close to getting a divorce because their husbands were just doing those 10 signs. And they looked normal, there was no outward sign, doctor said they're fine, but they were doing all these things. And then there was a little bit of anger and aggression and frustration, and then bills weren't being paid. And then there was accusations, and it's like, you know what, I'm not gonna live the rest of my life like that. So they were about to get divorced when finally they were like, the diagnosis is this. Oh. Now, does it make any of those things easier? No. Does it make you go, okay, well, it's not him, it's this disease, and let's work through this, and let's figure out what we can do and what resources are out there. Otherwise, I had a lady who they did get divorced, and a year after the divorce, he found out that he had Alzheimer's, and that's what was causing all that, and so then she's still divorced from him, but she's his caregiver. Because she's like, I love him, always loved him, but I didn't like what he was doing to me, and for me, and at all, so here we are. So it's knowing what it is that you're dealing with. Again, does not make it any easier, but it does make it a little bit easier to understand why. Then you have vascular dementia, which is another pretty popular one, and that's people who've had vascular issues, heart disease, stroke, and things like that, and they could develop a vascular dementia. And so if I develop vascular dementia, say at 60, as I age, most likely I'm going to get Alzheimer's on top of that. So that's not the BOGO anybody wants. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And then there's Lewy body dementia, and that is, so Alzheimer's, the kind of hallmark signs, trademark for is these plaques and tangles that build up into the brain and form these clusters and then kill off the brain cells. So a Lewy body dementia, instead of plaques and tangles, it's these things called Lewy bodies. And with that one, it can kind of mimic Parkinson's-like symptoms, and there's a lot of hallucinations and some aggression that kind of goes along with it. So again, just kind of knowing what it is that you're dealing with, and the Alzheimer's Association's website, we have a bunch of, more detailed description of what each of these things are. Next. So I kind of already talked about all that. It's just this, dementia is that general term. When I've talked to families, they've said, oh, I'm like, well, how long has your mom had Alzheimer's? Oh no, Mama doesn't have Alzheimer's, she's just a little bit of dementia. And I'm like, well, in my head, of course, I'm like, well, a little bit of dementia is like being a little bit pregnant. You either are or you're not. Is she in the earlier stages? Probably. A lot of times what happens is I'll talk to families and I'll be like, oh, okay, so let's kind of see what your mom's able to do, and so forth. And we start talking and they're like, well, she was just diagnosed. I'm like, okay, good. And I'm like, okay, well, what is she functioning like in the home? Can she, feed herself, bathe herself, dress herself? Well, I'm having to do. I'm like, So yes, mom was just diagnosed, but looking back, mom has had this issue for a long time. And what do we do? Especially if mom's older. We chalk it up to, she's older. And we don't look at anything further. And so, again, right now, there's nothing magical out there that we can do for this disease. But eventually, there is going to be something. So we need to know what it is that we're dealing with so that we can get whatever medication will eventually be available to help. Next. I already said that. Next. So mild cognitive impairment is someone who is, it could be any one of us in this room. This is typically a precursor to someone who will develop Alzheimer's. It's a little bit of issues kind of going on where I'm having some memory issues, but I'm still able to function at home alone. I might need a little bit of reminders, maybe someone coming in to make sure everything's okay. But for the most part, I'm fine, but it's just still showing up on a test. And then therefore, again, I may be eventually able to get Alzheimer's. Next. So it affects over 5 million people in this lovely United States of America. And probably 86,000 of them are right here in South Carolina. That's a lot. And those are the people that we know about. Because there's a lot of people who are dealing with these signs and symptoms, but we're ignoring it. Or I'm not in an area of South Carolina or the United States that I have access to a doctor, or I don't have transportation. So I'm still having these symptoms, I'm still having these issues, but I'm not, I don't have an official diagnosis. And then there was a study that was done through the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services that there's about 40-something% of people who have this disease diagnosed in their medical records, but they don't know that they have this disease. So it's not been disclosed to them or their caregivers, but it's written down in the chart. And what it probably was presented to them as, oh, take this pill for your memory problem. Yeah, that's a little bit more than that. We don't just give pills for like a possible problem. So imagine if that was cancer or even cholesterol or diabetes. Your doctor's like, here, take this for this little sugar thing you might have going on. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I don't know, I'm a wholehearted believer in total communication between a doctor and patient. If the doctor found something that he feels the patient may or may not want to know, doesn't he have a right to say, I found something, do you want to ask, do we need to discuss it?
So she was asking, saying about having kind of basically full disclosure, like this is an issue that I'm kind of seeing while I'm here examining you, let's discuss it. You would hope. So what happens is, I've been your family physician for 50 years. I feel like this is what's going on. You have some kind of dementia or Alzheimer's could be going on. But I don't have a pill for you. I have nothing that's going to cure you, fix you, or nothing to you. So therefore, we're just gonna hopefully have you take this little memory pill versus saying the word. So they might know that there's something going on, but that the word is not said. And as the patient, let's be honest, no one wants to hear a diagnosis of any kind of disease. But especially when you know that this disease doesn't have any real fix, it's like, I'm just gonna say it's a memory problem, and we're fine. And we're okay. The doctor said we're okay. So yes, I think, we do want to advocate for ourselves, and but if I'm the patient and I feel like something could be going on with me because my daughter keeps telling me, Mom, you keep doing this, and then I go to the doctor and the doctor may or may not tell me, and then my daughter's going to go, what did the doctor say? He said I'm fine. I'm good. Meanwhile, he may have told me that I wasn't, but I have dementia, and so now I can't remember if he said it, but I'm fine, we're good. And then we keep going and going and going, and we ignore it. And as families, a lot of them, I had a lady who was in a support group, and she goes, I came to this group, my husband's in the earlier stages, so he's still driving, and he's still kind of, functioning fine. And she's like, but he does have this disease, and we know it, and it's been told to us, but I don't really believe it. She's like, and she even said, she goes, I'm in denial. Because they look so normal, and they still act, in the very beginning, so normal, until they have a bad day. And then that's when we start to have the issues. Okay. And then what?
The types of things I noticed had to do with organizational abilities, mental abilities. And I was getting confused. I was finding it hard to plan. And there were two pivotal sort of moments that really brought this home to me. And the first one happened when I went into work one morning and sat down at my desk to plan out my day and couldn't figure out what to do. And literally sat there for an hour frozen and could not figure out what piece of paper to pick up first.
That can be scary when you're just like, And again, I think we've all sat at our desks, not for that long, hopefully. I might be fired. Just sitting there going, okay, what do I do first? Or I might be, I have a recipe that I've cooked forever and I know it and I could tell you cup of this, cup of that, teaspoon of this, teaspoon of that, but now all of a sudden I'm like, can't remember if it was a cup or a half a cup. And so then now you're having to look for it. Or you're looking at the recipe and you're like, okay, a cup of sugar, and then you go over to where the sugar is and you're like, what was I getting? Okay, let me go back. Cup of sugar. And so now this process is taking me forever. I'm leaving key ingredients out of, cakes and other recipes, and families going, what is going on? So the brain is a pretty amazing, magical piece of equipment that we all have. And one of the things is the motto for the Alzheimer's Association is, we are the brains behind saving yours. Because anybody with a brain is at risk for this disease. So some may be fine, but most of us with a brain, we are all at risk. One of the people who helped with the walk, she found out that a friend of hers, who is in her late 30s, who just had a baby, was just diagnosed with younger onset Alzheimer's, 30s. They thought she just kind of had pregnancy brain when she was pregnant, because, I mean, let's be honest, it's a little bit crazy when you're pregnant. But then, baby's born, and we're like, okay, things are just a little more than this. So, late 30s. So it's not just an old person disease. So whenever I have the opportunity to get out in front of people who maybe don't have to dye their hair, I make sure I do, because any single person with a brain is at risk for this disease. And so we try to make sure that we let everybody know that. But it's not just an old person disease. And I think that as that kind of becomes an awareness, I feel like we'll start to find more funding for research and finding a cure, because the younger people are like, oh, whoa, wait a minute, I don't want that. I won't get on the soapbox of elder issues because it's a whole different topic. So our brain is an amazing thing. So as we're all sitting here and you're hopefully listening to me, you may also be going in your brain, okay, when I'm done with this, I need to make sure that I go by the store and I need to pick up this, this, and so-and-so's coming over for coffee later, and we're planning out our week, or you're thinking, oh, I forgot about that person, I need to write her a thank you note. So all these things are happening. Memories are being created as we're sitting here. It may not be a lasting memory, but hopefully it is. But for the most part, everything that we do is being formed in our brain and creating, either it goes into a storage area like, okay, I'm going to keep this in a file for later, or, oh, this was magical, I'm going to make this a little memory I'm going to recreate. And memories can be brought back by a smell, a sound, a taste. Like when I smell a rose-scented perfume, I am automatically going back to when I was 7 years old, and I had a little plastic figurine doll, Rose Petal, and they had all the different flowers, but I only wanted Rose Petal because she was pink. And she had this pink pretty bob with a pink rose petal hat, and she smelled so pretty. And about 2 weeks ago, some woman passed by me, and she had a rose perfume, and I was like, oh, did we step it again? And then my daughter had the Fruit Stripes gum, which is the best sugar rush you'll have, and then like after about 5 chews, it's like chewing cardboard, so you spit it out and then you put another one in. I remember sitting on my porch at 13 with my best friend, and we literally each ate a pack of gum in like 10 minutes. Because it was like, you're like, okay, flavor's gone. And the flavor's gone. Hearing a song, you know, when I hear Crazy Love by Van Morrison, I am dancing at my wedding. So we all have those memories that can be triggered by something. And they're stored there. And then, you know, we sit there and go, oh my God, I can't believe I remember how to play, you know, this song on the piano. Or I can't believe I remember the words to that. And then we sit there and go, why do I remember the phone number from that? And I can't remember this. It's just the way things are stored. The brain is, you know, communicating with the body when we eat to tell the body to digest the food, and for the nutrients to go where it needs to go, and the fat to go where we don't want it to go, and the excess to go out of our body. All of this is happening. It tells us when we're hungry. It tells us when we're full sometimes. You know, it tells us when we're thirsty. All this communication is happening. And we don't have to think about it. Every one of you have a heart beating. You're not having to say beat, beat, beat. Or breathing. You're not having to tell yourself to breathe. You're not having to tell yourself to blink. Because if you think about it, if we had to do that, God knew what he was doing when he made those things automatic, because we would probably all be gone. Because we'd be like, oh God, I forgot to blink, and now my eyes are dried up. So all those things are happening. So it's body's talking to it, memories are being stored, and we're all here. And then Alzheimer's comes in and destroys that. So it starts to, one analogy I use is like Christmas tree lights, those are the best. You have the strand of lights, you put them all up, and everything is perfect. And then all of a sudden you look and there's a bulb out. And then you kind of flick it, or you twist it, back on. Then another one goes out, and another one, and then you might shake it a little bit, boop, light's back on. And then it goes out again. And now this time it's not going back on. And you're like, okay, that's only one light. I'll just put some decorations over that. So that's me making up a bunch of excuses. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I have this. Oh, it's the whatchamacallit. You know what I'm saying. Yep, that's it. And then another strand goes out. And then eventually, all the lights are out. That's a pretty depressing analogy, so Christmas is not going to be the same next time you put your Christmas tree lights up. But another one would be if you think about a sponge. Okay, so no one likes to clean. So let's think of a sponge. If you get a sponge and you get that wet, it kind of poofs up and it expands, and all the pores in that sponge are all put together nice and tight, and you put soap on it and it cleans and it does its job. It's a magical sponge. The magic eraser is actually pretty good. Then you take that same sponge and you put that in the heat in the middle of the pavement in August here in South Carolina. And what is that sponge going to do? It's going to shrink in size, shrink in its width, in its depth, and then the pores all on that sponge are all going to be really wide and big and gaping. And that is what the brain does. So a lot of times people, I told someone, I said, Alzheimer's is a fatal disease. And they were like, what? I just thought it was people forgetting things. And I am like, that is that much of the disease. If you think of an iceberg, you know, there's like this cap of ice, you're like, oh, look, iceberg, woo. But then underneath the surface of the water is this huge iceberg. And that's where all the damage ends up getting done to that ship. And that is what Alzheimer's is like. We have those little things, the forgetting and the maybe a little inappropriate things and word finding, but then there's all this other stuff that nobody really knows about or talks about. Next slide. Yummy. So that is our brain. So this would be this cross-section of me. So it starts with that short-term memory, and it doesn't necessarily go in a complete cycle of how it affects the different parts of the brain, because some days I may have a good day and remember something. I mean, I just saw a lady who would come to my Connections events, and I have not seen her, wow, probably 6 months, if not more. And I went to the assisted living facility she's at yesterday, which I didn't realize that, and I saw her and I was like, hey! And then she saw me, and she recognized me, and we hugged, and she showed me her room, and I had told her, I said, oh, it's Jamie, because, you know, let's be honest, we don't all remember everybody's name. I'm horrible at it. I wish everyone did wear name tags in life. So I was like, Erna, it's Jamie. And it was amazing that she showed me her room 4 times. So it was the first time I've seen it. Every 4 times I went in to go look at it. But she remembered my name, like in conversation a little bit later. And I was like, interesting. So it's interesting how things seem to kind of happen. So that's why if I look normal, and I have a lot of good days, but then I'm doing these odd things, you might think I'm just trying to get a rise out of you. I'm just trying to be a pain. I'm just doing this on purpose. And I'm doing this because I want to. And so then that's, again, we need to know what we're dealing with so you know that that's not what it is. Next. So it's just another example of what a severely Alzheimer's afflicted brain looks like. So it's literally destroying the brain. So it's not just this forgetting disease. So it just shows a cross-section of that. Next.
Bill had been a graduate student for an advanced degree, and he found himself having difficulty defending his thesis, the last thing that he needed to do. And he started making mistakes at work. We both somehow knew before he was diagnosed that something was very wrong. At first, we hoped it was something that they could either operate or cut out or burn out or something. Or maybe he was depressed. Maybe he just needed a nice weekend and it would be fine. And then we realized maybe something's really very wrong. And it was. We went through several doctors and several unsuccessful attempts at getting some sort of diagnosis. Each time they would test Bill, he would ace their tests. If they wanted him to count backwards by 3, he could count backwards by 3.25. His problems were very, very subtle. And when we finally realized he was laid off from work, and I'm sure that was part of the reason why he was laid off from work. But during the election, when we elected a brand new president, although Bill wasn't working, he wanted to be active. So he volunteered to work at the polls. And he was an officer of the election. And before he left, we were very, very excited about it. It was a long day. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. And we knew no matter what happened, it was going to be a historical event. So we were very, very excited. We would either have a female vice president or an African-American president. One of the two, and it was going to be huge. So we were excited about it. He went off, worked at the polls, came home and told me, and we were very animated, talked about the people all the way around the block waiting to vote, and we were so excited. We stayed up and watched the acceptance speeches. We found out who won. We thought that was just amazing, and it was history. So the next morning, we got out, and Bill said, I gotta get a paper. I said, why? He said, I gotta see who won. And we both realized, oh, he lost the whole day before because it was such a long day. And that was when I realized how serious it really was.
So she had to say we had to go through so many times to try to figure out what it is. And a lot of times people may go twice, and then it's like, you know what, we don't know what's going on. We're done. And then it continues to progress, and will continue to progress. And when we're like, well, the doctors don't know, so they think he's fine, so if he's fine, then I'm fine, but we're not. So again, having those resources to know, to arm yourself with that knowledge so you know what to do. So the risk factors for Alzheimer's, the primary one being age. So the older we get, the higher at risk we are of getting this disease. Again, I don't think anyone in this room is going to volunteer to not age any further. So that is inevitable. Next is the gender. So most women are higher at risk of getting this disease than men. It says it's because we live longer. I think it's because we have to tell our husbands and children 50,000 times to do the same thing over and over and over. And remember so many things ourselves. That's really not it. But so there's that. Again, we can't change being a woman. But we do live longer. So there is that higher risk. An interesting thing about that factor is in my connections group, which is a group that I started a couple years ago for people in the early mid stages of any kind of dementia and their caregiver or a guest, is most of the people, I think, let's pretend there's 20 people, I think 18 of the people are men. So they're the ones with the disease. It's kind of interesting, that thing. But if you ever go into a nursing home or an assisted living facility, most of the population is women. So then we have the Down syndrome, and that's because the Down syndrome brain does age quicker than the normal brain, and their life expectancy is shorter, so that they're at higher risk of getting this disease. Family history, so if your grandmother and your great-grandmother and the great-great-great-great-grandmother all had Alzheimer's or dementia, you are at higher risk of getting the disease. Does not mean it's a guarantee. So the likelihood is a little bit higher, obviously, than someone who doesn't have that. But again, there's plenty of people in the group and people that I know that there's zero history and their parent is the one who ended up getting the disease. There are genes that are related to this disease, and but again, we still really don't know what causes this disease. The early 1900s was when we first diagnosed someone with this disease, and then with, you know, the life expectancy in the 1900s wasn't very old. So there wasn't a lot of people with this disease. Well, we're living a lot longer, whether it's because we're just living right or being kept alive if we're like in a nursing home and, you know, on a feeding tube and so forth. We are living a lot longer. So therefore, there seems to be a lot more people with this disease. And the baby boomers, they're booming, so that population is going to get even bigger because there's that group of people that are quote-unquote eligible for the disease. So again, the gene doesn't mean you're going to get the disease, it just means compared to someone who doesn't have the gene, you would be at higher risk of getting the disease. So people say, well, should I get tested for the gene? And then my answer is, you need to talk to your physician to see if this is something you should do. And if you do have the gene, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to be part of a clinical trial, be in a study? Because if not, currently there isn't anything that you can do to prevent it from happening. So now literally every time you forget like the most normal thing, you're going to be like, it's it, it's happening, it's done. So again, at this moment in time, because there isn't anything out there to say, oh, take this pill to prevent it, you need to really weigh out why you really want to know if you have the gene. Next. So, this part. Most of the people will go to their primary care physician, and some of the primary care physicians are going to be wonderful and great and good, and they're going to, you know, go through some testing and see could there be something going on. There's, you know, a mini mental test, which basically would have you count backwards. I think it's by threes. Well, I can't do that. Like I'll 100, like 97, 94, 91, and then now I'm using my fingers. So that's not a really great indicator. Then it's drawing a clock, it's spelling things, it's recalling things, it's, you know, those types of things. So there's these clinical things that we can kind of do to have a relatively accurate diagnosis of what could be going on with a person. There isn't a blood test that I know of at this moment in time to make a definition to determine this. There are physicians that are geriatricians. Not a lot. So the only one that I know of offhand is at the Center for Success in Aging, their memory health program. But the waiting list is, as you can imagine, is pretty significant because there are not a lot of geriatricians. So, and a geriatrician would just kind of like being like if you went to a cardiologist, a specialist who's going to look at, you know, this person, the diagnosis, you know, their health and all that stuff. And they can help with determining if it truly is an Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. Neurologist, South Carolina is in a neurology desert. Yay. And then again, waiting on the neurologist is another waiting list. And then once you find one, you know, they do the brain scan to kind of see if, you know, is there anything going on? But then I've had plenty of people who currently have this disease who said when they first went and got a CAT scan, didn't show up anything. And the testing that they did was, they did okay, because anybody, especially in the earlier stages, can keep it together for those 15 minutes you're sitting in front of the doctor. I'm being socially appropriate, I'm engaging, I'm answering the questions, I might kind of joke about some of the ones I don't really know. So the doctor's like, you're fine. You're only 60. You're 62. You're good. You're this. And so then we kind of have to keep waiting and waiting. And then the wife or the husband is like, there is something wrong. And we don't know what it is. And then again, it becomes this, you know, force of someone telling you to get, you know, what is wrong with me? So when you go to the doctor, I always tell people, and I'm definitely jumping ahead, to make sure that if you're noticing any of these signs or any issues, that you're kind of keeping a log of what is going on. So if I sat down in the doctor's office with my mother and was like, oh, she keeps forgetting everything and she gets lost, she would probably smack me and be like, who are you? You don't know anything. I'm not forgetting things. What am I forgetting? And then of course when someone says, well, what am I forgetting? And you're like, I don't know, stuff that we keep fighting about. So keeping a log of what is going on, when you're noticing these things. You know, are they on a new medication? Because there's a lot of things that could mimic the signs that we talked about in the beginning that have nothing to do with Alzheimer's or dementia. I could be anemic. I could be drinking a bottle of wine instead of a glass of wine every night. I could be starting a new medication and that's affecting me. I could be maybe not be taking my medication the way I'm supposed to. Because if I'm supposed to take it 4 times a day, I may go, ooh, my budget's a little tight, so I'm just going to take it twice a day and I'm going to make this bottle last for 2 months. Well, that could be affecting it. I could have an electrolyte imbalance, a hormone imbalance. I could have ADHD and, you know, and not realize it. There was a lady who came to one of my programs and she goes, oh my gosh, yeah, I thought I had Alzheimer's, and she's like, and my doctor gave me this test and turns out I have ADD and I went on a medication for it, and she's like, now I'm remembering things, I'm more focused, I'm able to do this, that, and the other. ADD is not just for, you know, not just for my son, 10-year-old little boy. It's for anybody, anyone can have it, and we just kind of chalks it to be, oh, I've always been a little flighty and forgetful, and now as I get older and I can't kind of compensate and manage those things, it may kind of exacerbate itself. So don't see these things and go, oh dear Lord, it's Alzheimer's. It could be a million other things. Yes, next. And look at me, I'm myself. So, and also, the one thing too, because I know that there's a lot of things people talk about, Prevagen and, you know, St. John's wort and this supplement and that supplement and this vitamin and so forth. And again, talk to your doctor, and if you have multiple doctors and you only have one pharmacist, talk to the pharmacist to see if any of those things could interact and counteract with one another. As we age, we don't absorb medications and things like we used to. So if you're okay with flushing $30 down the toilet every time you go, okay. So we need to make sure, are we even absorbing this medication or this supplement that we're taking? So just again, make sure that you're talking with your doctor or pharmacist or, I mean, someone, just so you know what you're taking. Next. So yeah, so one of the things, you know, hopefully, again, we have the log, we're presenting this to the doctor, you know, hopefully they can rule out, because depression, a true depression, can mimic these signs. And then when you get on that antidepressant, you go back to normal. And so, again, don't just chalk it up to being Alzheimer's. I had a gentleman who ended up finding out when he finally ended up going to a neurologist, got the brain scan, and he had a tumor. He was able to get it removed, it wasn't cancerous, but now he's fine. But had he just said, oh, when I'm 65, I'm just gonna keep ignoring it, it's part of aging, it's this, it's that, he could have died. So it could be something that can be fixed. And again, Alzheimer's dementia is not a normal part of aging. No one in this room should get Alzheimer's or dementia just because you're alive. Okay? You're not supposed to get cancer, heart disease, struck by lightning, hit by a bus. You're not supposed to get this disease. Next. So obviously, anytime you hear any kind of diagnosis of any kind of disease, you have a ton of emotions. Denial is one of the biggest ones, because it's like, well, no, it can't be that, because he's still able to do this. Or it can't be that because she can still tell me stories from back 30 years ago. Well, that's because back 30 years ago is back here. Alzheimer's is affecting that short-term memory. It hasn't gotten there yet. They're able to still do this. They're able to still do that. So it clearly can't be any of what we're talking about. We're fine. We're good. One of the things that I try to tell people is, if the doctor does say, take this for your memory, or does say the words dementia, I do hope that you or whoever you know, if they come to you and say, oh my goodness, my doctor gave me a memory pill, tell them to call the Alzheimer's Association so that we can talk to them. Because a doctor currently, right now, they don't have time to sit there. I have 15 minutes, so in and out. I have people waiting, we gotta go. So I don't have time to sit there and really get into this disease. So we are the Alzheimer's Association, but we're the Alzheimer's and other related dementia disorders. So Alzheimer's Association is a mouthful in and of itself, so we're not gonna add all that other stuff. But we help anybody with any kind of dementia. So again, to find out what it is that you're dealing with, what to expect, getting that support. In the very beginning, my little group that I started, I had maybe 2 couples that came. And I'm like, I know there are more people out there in the early mid-stage of this disease. Why are they not coming? And I was about to cancel the group because nobody was coming, and I would send out invitations and all these things, and nobody was showing up. And one of the people was like, well, I didn't want to contact you or go there because you're the Alzheimer's Association. My husband didn't have Alzheimer's. He had whatever, dementia. Okay. And then it is an ugly word. I mean, it's awful to say, it's awful to spell, no one can really pronounce it, so I don't want to call that place. I don't want to call it. I don't need the support right now, because he's still the deacon in the church and singing in the choir, and he's still, working part-time, and he can still drive. I don't need to sit in a group of people and talk about this disease. I don't want to be around it. We don't want to be with others. This is a progressive disease, so they may not need it today, but you may need it tomorrow. And I always tell people that you want to get the support before you need it, so that when you do trip and stumble, because you will, because we don't know what we're dealing with, and we think we got a grasp on it, but then we don't. And we're like, what am I supposed to do? So you'll always fall into the hands of another person who's like, girl, I've been there. This is what you should try to do. This is what we should try to do. Let's do this together. This is a disease, especially as it progresses, that is very isolating, because I'm saying and doing things that are a little bit inappropriate. I may feel a little less likely to want to be around other people, so now you're like, oh honey, we're gonna go to the Joneses and have dinner. No, I don't want to go today. I'm not up to it. And then I start to say things that are weird, and I'm not really able to carry on the conversations I always have, so then now my friends really don't want to hang out with me anymore, because they don't know what to do with me. They don't know what to say to me. So then the group of people we used to do things with has now shrunk, sometimes to nothing. And so that's why I started this group, so that these families can have these connections and be together. And so that they can go, well, what did you do when? What did you think about this? And now I have, the other day I had 28 people at my connections group. And that was with like 6 other people who normally come, who just couldn't make it. I am like, yes, I have all you people. And then I'm like, ugh. But we're there, and that is what the key thing, so that you can get that knowledge and to get that support, to know what it is that you're dealing with. And relief. It's like, oh, that is why he's doing those things. Now I get it. Again, still stinks when they're yelling at you and telling you that you are awful, especially if you are the daughter or trying to take care of mom, to get her to do, take a shower, and then you're getting her to do this, and you're trying to get her to eat, and now she's just kind of getting aggravated with you, and she's yelling at you and calling you names, and you're like, You are so ungrateful. How dare you? I'm here taking care of you. I'm neglecting my own family to take care of you, and this is the, the thanks I get. And there's all this anger and tension, and then meanwhile, mom just like doesn't get it. She's not trying to be that way, but you're that person. And so going to these groups does help to get that relief from those feelings. Next. So again, in the early stages, we almost don't even realize that there's anything going on. There's been a couple of people who, in that group that I have, they'd be like, now which one of them has the disease? And I'm like, look, you don't even know. So and they can be, still very social and engaging and able to participate. So just because that diagnosis is given doesn't mean you're like, here are my keys, here's my checking account, I'm gonna sell my house and go into a home and I'm done. There's still a lot of life to live, even with this diagnosis. And, and hopefully one day there will be a lot longer of a life to live because there will be a cure or a method of prevention or slowing down this disease or even figuring out what is causing it so maybe we can stop doing it. Then, so there's that, a little bit of driving issues might happen. So, I might have some scrapes on the side of my car, headlight might be busted out, my mailbox might be bent, I didn't see it, all these little things. So we kind of, looking out for those things. One of the things that people start to notice, and usually it's when the families start to go, something ain't right. Because, dad decided to go to the dealership and pay cash for a brand new car. Why are we doing this, Dad? You just bought this other car not that long ago. Okay. Or I'm going to visit Mom and I'm like, why are your lights not on? Oh, there must have been a storm, due to power, and it's windy and it went out. If you live on State Park Road, if it's too windy, it's out. So we're like, it's that. No, Mom, because everyone on the street has their lights on. Well, we called Duke Power. Oh, Mom hasn't paid the bill in 3 months. But you look in her checkbook and she's written out the check. It's just still in the checkbook for 3 months. Or things are where they don't belong at all. And you're like, I'm going to the pantry and there's this curdled milk that's been sitting there because she put it in the pantry instead of the refrigerator. Now, we've all done that here and there, don't worry. Then in the middle stage, I'm starting to have a little bit more difficulty being in a social setting. I really probably, God willing, should not be driving. That is, one of the hot topics and issues because, if I live here in Greenville and my mom lives in, let's say, she lives in Massachusetts and let's pretend there's nobody there to help her, how is she gonna get to the doctor's appointment and the grocery store and to church and to just anything? So we're just gonna do this. La la la. And we're not gonna hear the traffic ticket you got for going, too slow or in the wrong way of the highway or whatever. We're gonna ignore those things. Because what am I gonna do? So there is a lot of issues that start to kind of happen, and so we begin to withdraw, whether it's the person itself, but if I'm at home, it's also going to be the caregiver. We're going to withdraw and not do a lot of things, because it can be very overwhelming to be in a social setting, and to know that when we're, at a restaurant, if I'm ready to go, like we know to wait, to pay for the bill. But if I have Alzheimer's and I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. So I put my jacket on, I might say, where's everybody? What's taking so long? And then you as a caregiver, you're like, oh God, this is embarrassing. So then we're not going out to eat anymore. So again, that's why these connections events started, so that we can do these things. So, March is here and we have some great events, and then I looked at my calendar for April and I think I have like 1 million things happening. So come on out and be part of this group of people who are in the same boat. We're all on this journey together, and I'm your tour guide. And then at the end stage, the last stage of the disease, that's typically when we are being placed into a facility. A lot of times people say, well, when should I put my loved one? And that's different for everybody, because what I might be able to handle, you might not be able to handle. I might be able to care for my mom a lot longer, because she's a girl, than taking care of my dad, because he has all the boy parts. And so I don't want to do that. Or if I'm the son, oh yeah, I'm not going anywhere near mom. So ladies, hope you like your mother-in-law, because you're probably going to be the one taking care of her. So there's that. But then there's some people, I had a lady, she's a nurse, and she goes, oh, my husband, he's starting to have accidents, and we're cleaning that up and stuff. And I was like, oh, that must be tough. She goes, I don't care about doing that. She's like, that's easy. It's him yelling at me that gets me. So for her, that's fine. But for someone who, the bathroom issue might be the issue. Or is my health starting to fail? Because, as a caregiver, what are we doing? We're making sure that our loved one has been bathed, they're dressed, they have their medication, they've eaten, they're cleaned up, they're comfy, they're happy, and you're like, I think I took a shower 3 days ago. And I still, my little medication container still has all the meds in it because I forgot to take my own. When was the last time I went to the doctor? Ooh, I don't know. So we're not taking care of ourselves. And so that's why I made sure I had wind down nights and caregiver appreciation nights for the caregivers so that they can get out of the house and take care of themselves. Because we forget to do that because we're doing all this. And if you're the sandwich generation, I'm taking care of my children and my house and I work and I'm taking care of mama. And we're doing that. So now I'm trying to find this balance between these two lives. And again, when was the last time I went to the doctor? Who knows? When did I eat last? Because, let's be honest, especially when we cook like a big dinner, like Thanksgiving. I know at Thanksgiving sometimes when it's time to eat, I'm like, I don't even feel like eating. I'm just exhausted. So now my health starts to decline. And then that's increasing my risk of developing this disease as well. Next.
One of the things with respect to caregiving, and a lot of patients, families, and I count myself in this group, we're baby boomers. We're used to things the way we want them, and everything's conveniently disposed of, arranged, whatever. But it's not so easy to try to take care of your aging parent who lives 5 states away. And one of the things that most of us have not dealt with is who's going to take care of mommy, who's going to take care of daddy. How am I going to manage her business affairs? Who makes decisions for what she wants to do for her health care? I don't think that those are decisions and discussions that most families have early enough. We have them in crisis, but we don't do them early so that we know what the game plan is. If there's anything that I think that all of us should do is have a discussion with our parents, both of them, one of them, whichever one is available, early enough on to say, how do you want things to go if this happens to you?
Imagine the Clemson Tigers going into a game and there's no playbook. And Dabo goes, go out. Go out on the field and do what you think you're supposed to do. Come on. So we plan so many things in our lives, but we don't plan the end. Because let's be honest, who wants to talk about dying and death and who's going to take care of me when I can't take care of me? Ew. But death and taxes, inevitable. And every year, we get all our documents and we go get our taxes done. But do we look at those other documents, the healthcare power of attorney, the living will, the financial power of attorney? Probably not. Do we even have them? That's the other question. Good girl. A lot of us don't have those things on file. And I've been in the senior industry since '99, and I've seen the crisis planning. So we've noticed as a family that mom's been kind of failing a little bit and she's not making the right choices here and there, but well, whatever, she's stubborn and she's independent and we don't want to take anything away from her, and let's be honest, I really don't want to take it from her, I don't want to do it either. So we ignore. Mom falls, busts her hip, she goes to the hospital, she needs surgery, now she needs rehab, so she has to go to a facility for rehab. And then the family's all like, oh no, what do we do? Who makes the decision? Mom wouldn't want to do this, I don't want to do this, who's going to do this? And it's like, ugh! And it is just awful. So having those documents into place is so critical. And to review them every year. Because I had another family, they had their they came in and she's like, we have we were just diagnosed a few months ago and I've been putting off coming to see you. And I was like, totally understandable. And so we just started talking about those things and she goes, I go, do you have a power of attorney? And she said, yes. I said, awesome. She goes, I'm his power of attorney. I said, who's your power of attorney? She goes, he is. I was like, you need to get another one. Right now he can make a decision for you, but he's not going to be able to. So you need to get another one. So every year looking at those documents and revisiting those wishes and desires so that you know what it is that we're dealing with. And talking to your family about it. Because what typically happens is it's mama and the daughter and maybe a son that live here in Greenville, and they're all aware of what's going on. But we're not going to tell my sweet baby boy any of the bad things. So he's just going to know that he doesn't need to worry about anything. And then I have another daughter who's in Seattle who will call and just check in on things. And then I'm the main one, because there's always one. There's always one that's the caregiver. And so I'm the one doing it all, and I'm making the decisions, and then all of a sudden brother's going, oh, well, what are you doing with mom's money? Why are you doing that? What did you do with this? And then the sister in Seattle's going, well, I spoke with our brother, and he said da-da-da-da-da-da. And then meanwhile, I'm like, I'm just trying to make things right. So letting everybody know what is going on. And it does help with everything, because if you don't have these things and an emergency comes up, then it goes through this like Adult Healthcare Consent Act, and it goes through like a guardian, and then the powers of attorney, and then the spouse, and then it's your children. So if your children never got along, they're still not gonna get along. It's gonna be even worse, and it's gonna be a mess. And then now you have them trying to make decisions for you. So again, just planning early so that you, again, have that support team, and plan for the worst, and you hope for the best. And you just try to make it right and make it work and work through those things. And so that this way you kind of have those finances set up. Because this disease, it could last, it could go as quickly as 4 years or 20 years. And those 20 years, most of them will be requiring someone coming into the home or in a long-term care facility. And then if you were at the program earlier this year, how are we going to pay for that? Ooh, yikes. And that's a long time to pay for those things. So again, knowing what it is that we're dealing with, knowing how to plan, how to talk about these things, how to set them forth is so critical. Next. And the last one was to educate, which you're doing right now, which is awesome. I did a program in Easley a couple days ago, and this lady came in and she goes, there should be more people here. I'm like, I know. There needs to be more people here. But we don't like to talk about it. This disease is icky. No one wants to talk about it. We're going to ignore it. So educating yourself about the disease. The next class is, the next one's going to be on effective communication strategies. And then the last one's going to be on understanding and relating to those dementia behaviors. Because now, you're going to take those classes and you're going to be the best person ever. You're going to be the best caregiver ever. No, because you're a human and you're going to react and you're going to do what you've always done. But then the hope is you go, hold on, I know I said this the bad way, the wrong way. Let me take a deep breath. I think I remember someone saying something about something. Let me look and here I go, and then you go forward. So learning about those things, because then you go, oh, that's what she was talking about when. So the medications that are here, they're helping with the symptoms of this disease. So they might be helping some people for some time with that short-term memory. They're helping some people for some of the time with that mood and behavior issues. It is not slowing the progression of the dementia down. So it's just helping with those symptoms. And then we sit there and go, is it really helping with those symptoms, or are we thinking that it is? You know, like when you're in a research study, you know, usually it's a double blind. So this half the room might be getting the drug and this half is getting a sugar pill. But you all may be actually doing pretty good because we're taking something and we're thinking and hoping and making it kind of come to existence. And then eventually that placebo part wears off and then we know. So then we sit there and go, well, what do we do? What is out there? Well, part of the issues that we have with finding something is we don't have enough people in the clinical trials, which I totally get it. Do I want to be the one that takes the sugar pill? I want the one with the drug. But people who are involved in clinical trials do get a higher level of medical treatment and care, and even if you are getting the sugar pill, the level of and quality of care and medical attention is nothing like you would get regular. You know, and anyone who wants to be involved in any clinical trials, we have a clinical trial match on our website. It's a great resource, great information. You would sign up, and doesn't put you in a clinical trial. All it does is you set up a profile, and then you get information about clinical trials in your area. And it doesn't have to be medication. There's some who they're doing studies on sleep. They're doing studies on lifestyle. It could be where you're doing it online. It could be where you're going to a place. And usually you're compensated for these things. But again, just because you sign up on Trial Match does not make you in a study. So it's just to get you that information. But so right now we're just we don't really know what's causing the Alzheimer's, so we really don't know what to do to fix it. I asked a researcher, I was like, so what, any news? He's like, we're really good at curing Alzheimer's in mice. Because they're giving the mice this Alzheimer's, so they know what caused it. So now I know what to do to get it. But what happened to this person getting Alzheimer's and this person getting this, we just don't know. Next.
So what can we expect from these drugs? Primarily, we can expect that they may improve your learning and memory a little bit. They may improve your word-finding abilities. They may improve a person's social interaction. So there may be behavioral effects as well as the cognitive effects of these medications. But generally, they improve the overall situation to a certain extent. Now, is that in fact effective? We think so, but it's modest. In some people, they may not notice any particular difference. On the other hand, in some individuals, they may preserve their function for a longer period of time. However, these are not disease-modifying therapies, so they really don't have an impact on the overall outcome of the disease. Nevertheless, they may be very useful in the short run.
So then I say, okay, that's why knowing what you're dealing with earlier, so I'm noticing some changes, but I'm still I'm good. I'm still working, I can still manage. So wouldn't you want to start some kind of medication to help you while you're at this level of cognitive functioning, instead of waiting, denying, ignoring, and now we're trying to get it here. It's not going to improve, but it hopefully can keep you at like this little baseline. And again, there's been a lot of research studies on just that social interaction. And we do have a program with the risk reduction, and the 4 things that they do talk about is following a heart-healthy diet, which we all hate that 4-letter word, but it's just eating right, eating better. So having a good heart-healthy diet, being physically active, so getting that heart rate pumping and moving and getting that blood flowing, so we're exercising. Oh, another word. And then we're keeping our brain active, so whether that's learning something new, reading, listening to an informative podcast, watching PBS, learn anything that you're kind of learning something new, keeping that, brain cognitively stimulated, and being socially engaged. So even if someone has mild cognitive impairment or even any early stages of this disease, doing those things can improve that person's quality of life and hopefully kind of keep them at a better baseline for a longer period of time. And I already kind of went through that next. So the Alzheimer's Association provides a 24/7 helpline. So anybody, whether they're with a disease, not with a disease, clinicians, caregivers, professional caregivers, whatever, anyone can call our toll-free number and you will get someone on the other end of the phone. It will be in Chicago. If you need to talk to me and you can't find the local number, you can call that Chicago number and say that you want to talk to the person in the Greenville office, and then we will get that message and give you a call back. If you need to have a more in-depth conversation and you need what is called a care consultation, they'll give you a call back, and it would be with a licensed social worker who can help you work through these things. And all of our services and programming are free, so you can get some really good help 24/7 for free. Because let's be honest, a crisis, a question is not going to happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And I'm not in my office all the time from 9 to 5. I'm all over the place, I feel like, some days. So you will always get someone on the other end of the phone. We do information and referrals, so that's you need a home care agency, a facility, do you know of a doctor, this, that, the other thing, and we can kind of give you that information. We do the care consultations as well, and we can do it in the office, we can do it at a coffee shop, we can do it over the phone. I've even done it through going back and forth through email with answering things. So whatever works for you is where we like to meet the individual. We have the early stage social engagement program, that is our Connections Cafe, which is once a month we meet at the Upcountry History Museum, and then we tour one of their traveling exhibits, and then we'll do some kind of activity. So yes, the other day it was I think Alex Norman, he's the illustrator for DC and Marvel Comics. So it's pretty cool to see his early works and what he's currently doing. And then we all made either superhero socks or a superhero t-shirt. And it was great. And some of them were engaged in doing it and some of them were not. And I'm like, who cares? You're here. You're not home. I don't care what you do while you're here. You're just not at home. And then we do other really fun activities throughout the month, whether it's a dinner, painting. We're gonna go to the Aloft Hotel on the 21st, and we have Lucky Pup Rescue is gonna come, and we're gonna play with some puppies for about 35 minutes to an hour, and then the Aloft Hotel is feeding us lunch. So great collaboration with the community. So just doing different things. We have support groups that meet throughout the state, as well as online, so you can go to All's Connected. So if you don't want to go and sit with other people and talk about this, you can go online and do that as well. We have some of the groups are educational, some of them are very, hi, I'm Jamie and my so-and-so has Alzheimer's and this is what I'm dealing with. On this coming Monday, we have a spouse dinner group that we meet at the Open Hearth, and it's a Dutch treat. We have a glass of wine, we eat dinner, we laugh, we've cried, we've chatted. So they're all very different, the support groups that we have. And then we have a variety of educational programs that we offer to the community. We do have a sitter service voucher, which would, if you are a caregiver and you need someone to stay with your loved one so that you can go to the support group or the educational program or any other activity we have, you can get a voucher that would pay for someone to come out to the home and stay with your loved one to do that. Because usually it's, oh, I really would love to go to a support group, but I can't leave John alone. Well, get someone to stay with him. I'd love to do that, but I can't afford it. Oh, good. Well, boom, here's a voucher. Now you have to come, because I've taken away all of your reasons why you can't come. We also have a respite voucher, and so with the collaboration with the Appalachian Council of Governments, we have vouchers through them And they administer these vouchers that can range anywhere from $500 to $1,500. And that would be used in a 3-month period of time so that you as a caregiver can go to Myrtle Beach for the weekend for that wedding you're supposed to go to. Go get your hair done. Go to lunch. Go just out of the house and not be a caregiver. Just to kind of get that rest, so that relaxing respite, and then sitter services for support. So we do have those opportunities for people as well. Next. So then we have these signature things that are token throughout the United States. So in the fall season, anywhere from September to November, anywhere in the United States, pretty much, you can find a Walk to End Alzheimer's. That is one of our largest support group, fundraiser, awareness events for anybody who has this disease. That gives everybody an opportunity to raise the money, and then that money can help pay for these services as well as research efforts. And we have the longest day, which is on the summer solstice, and that gives an opportunity for you to do whatever you want to raise awareness and money. So the walk, you're walking, obviously. The longest day, we've had people play bridge, we've had people, I had a caregiver, she goes, I had just my friends and family come over to my house, and I had muffins and mimosas in the morning, and then I had some wine and cheese at night, and they came in and I raised $3,600. So just kind of anything. You can, we have people do lake events, whatever. So it's anything that makes your heart happy that would honor that person, because the summer solstice is the longest day of the year. Caregiving every day is the longest day. And so that's kind of where that came. And then we have people who are on our advocacy team. And so they go to Washington and they go to Columbia, and they are getting this disease in front of people so that they know that if we do not do anything about this disease, it is not going to be good. So we have a State House Day coming up on April 11th where we're going to go to Columbia, and we're going to tell our legislators that we need to keep this respite funding, and they need to keep Alzheimer's research and care and support in the forefront of when they're making any decisions. When I started with the association in 2013, we only received about maybe $500 million from the NIH in funding for this disease. 6th leading cause of death. And of the top 10, we were the only one that has no cure, no prevention, no slowing it down. And we also were the only one that only had $500 million in research funding. All the other diseases have billions of dollars. And all the other diseases have some type of slowing it down, prevention, and cure. Alzheimer's disease kills more people than prostate and breast cancer combined. So it's there, and so we need to do something. Fast forward to today, and now we're in, I think, almost, either we're at $1 billion or kind of close to $2 billion, finally, in funding. And so you might see a little bit more, you have Bill Gates, I think, came up with, I think, a few $100 million for research. So we're getting there, but in the Alzheimer's Association, we are 3rd in funding for finding a cure for this disease. So we have a dual mission. So we not only, if you, the little swirly sign on all our literature, one part looks like a profile of a person's head, and the other part looks like a science beaker. So it's a dual mission of the care and support, which is what my role is, taking care of the people today, as well as the tomorrow. So we have the Republic of China, the National Institute for Health, that's the United States government, and then the Alzheimer's Association. We are the largest funders in this disease. Next.
I think it is important to reach out to the Alzheimer's Association. They have information to help you plan and think through the critical steps that you need to take on immediately, and I think that's very important. I also think it's important to reach out and build the community of friends and family that will be there to help support you as you go through that. it's a critical disease that can't be done alone. And you can't care for a person alone in that process. There's too many stories about the difficulties that that brings. So I think early on it's important for you to build that community and those relationships so that you know you have people you can call on to help you when the time is there.
And I'm in the process of, because I can sit here and be like, you need to be part of a support group, you need to get educated, and you're just like, ugh. And if you're in the middle of it, you're like, what do you know? But when you hear it from someone who's doing it, who's used it, it kind of has a different impact. And so we're going to be putting together a little documentary-esque type thing of some of the caregivers that we've worked with who are part of what we're doing for them. Because it is truly important having that community of people to understand what it is that you're dealing with. So I've already kind of mentioned that our website truly is amazing. We have a bunch of online things. There's different resources. It'll show you what's kind of going on. There's an amazing interactive brain tour, so you can see the different parts of the brain on how it affects a person and just kind of get a little bit of a better understanding. But that 800 number is definitely critical. Next. That might be it. And that's it. I do, before anything, I do have over on the stage, I have our chapter brochure that goes over all of our programs and services and things that we provide. And I did forget to mention, we do have a safety service, so we do have a medical alert safe return program. And it's just a bracelet that would have an ID number, and it would say that the person's name and that they have a memory impairment. And that if you contact us, you can get that for free through the Alzheimer's Association and the Medical Alert Safe Return Program. So that is definitely something, because individuals with this disease will try to wander and be gone. And you've seen it if you're on Facebook, like, oh, silver alert and so forth. So that definitely can help in relocating them. And then I have a brochure of the basics, which is kind of what I talked about today, as well as a little card for the Walk to End Alzheimer's. And I would love if you could, I don't know if you got like a registration of people who signed up, of who came, or
Due for October, not for today.
Okay, so for today, so that my boss and National knows that this is an amazing group of people, you don't have to fill out all of your information, but if you could put your name and zip code as the bare minimum of information, I would love that. And if you don't want to give me your first name, you can give me your first initial and your last name and your zip code. Because we would do things and I would be like, we have reached way more people, but then I just wasn't getting the names. So that's how we get our credit, so that the national office knows that the South Carolina chapter is kicking butt. But anyway, I thank you for your time and being here and for letting me be here. And if anyone has good questions.
If you have somewhere to go, we ran with Jamie being very
Sorry.
thorough the way she is. We
Just
ran
quickly
over, so
here.
if you have somewhere to
Yeah.
go, feel free to go. You can fill out the card for Jamie. But if you have questions,
Please stay on
ask, and
yours.
maybe Jamie will have some answers for you.
The question I have, and I imagine everybody here is thinking about it, how do other industrialized, socialized, not socialized, countries, and a lot of them around, how do they stack up against us when it comes to Alzheimer's problem? What are they doing?
Other countries?
Yes.
I honestly don't have like the exact numbers of compared to us. But worldwide, there's over 47 billion people with this disease. So it's not just here. Some of the other countries like Europe and over there, there's a lot of farm to table with food, so there's not a lot of, because if you've ever watched House Hunters International, they don't have a pantry and a garage fridge, so they're getting their food kind of like, I'm going to the store, I'm cooking it, and there's not a lot of preservatives and boxed stuff. There's a lot more walking, so their lifestyle is a little bit different than ours. So it's a little bit hard. It's not, we're really not measuring apples to apples when we go, what are they doing over there compared to here? But it is everywhere. It's not just here. Anyone?
Question.
Yep.
Because my mother, I think she died from Alzheimer's. Do they just forget? Does the brain just forget to breathe and she just stopped eating, she stopped drinking?
Yeah, so she said they said their mother died from Alzheimer's, and she's like, how did that happen? And so what happens, again, that brain is, tells your body, oh, you're hungry, so we need to eat. Well, eventually the brain isn't telling me that I'm hungry. And even if I have a feeding tube where the nutrients are being pumped right into my stomach, I'm still losing weight and not getting the nutrients like I should, because that brain and body is not communicating with each other. So a lot of times what happens is the person would die from maybe a stroke or a heart attack or aspiration pneumonia, or they just stop. And that again is the brain just stops telling the body to do what it's supposed to do. So I say it's the sixth leading cause of death, but most likely it's probably higher in the top 3. Because on that coroner's report, the first cause of death would be heart attack, stroke, secondary Alzheimer's. That person probably wouldn't have had that stroke happen had it not been for the Alzheimer's. So, but yeah, so again, the body is just not communicating. So when people go, oh, I just thought it was a disease that people forgot a lot of stuff. No, it's the body is not communicating with the brain like it always has been. Anyone else?
My mother had you didn't mention about circulatory, my mother had a series of mini strokes, and that sort of started her dementia.
So that would be part of with the vascular issue is, so I'm having these little mini strokes and that's keeping the brain, deadened. So that would be the vascular portion of that dementia. But yeah, it's, and again, it's knowing. And so the program I have about risk reduction, I do it and I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is nothing new. Doctors have been telling us, eat right. Let me just take that little pill because I'd rather not eat that bland chicken, So it's, again, things that we've all known, eat right, exercise, read. Duh. But now it's oh wait, this actually could help me. So now it's okay, let's get this show on the road and let's start. And it's better to start now than never. Anyone else? Awesome. Well, again, I thank you and I'll see you next month.